If he puts a big bet out here, I don't think we're going to see Urmo going anywhere. Around half the pot. Or exactly half the pot.
Now, it isn't just the deuce, but also that queen that has Urmo deliberating. Remember, as played, this one was raise, 3-bet call.
All in.
Check and then check back.
Ali.
And Velt is going to go super hard here.
Oh, my.
A check jam.
When everybody's ears are tuned to the same orchestra, the notes of a symphony, they're all kind of playing in tandem. As we saw there, Kamosi making a nice fold with the ace-deuce against the open of Golinsky as the short stack.
And a nice pair of eights here for Velt.
Andrian with an ace on the button, and Velt. Okay, he does just release it. And Kamosi with a much stronger ace this time in the form of a suited jack to go along with it. And I believe that his chips will be going into the middle with a hand this strong, with just 13.5 big blinds. And barring the big blind entering the pot, I believe we're going to see an all-in and a call.
2.7 million. Kamosi deliberates. Doesn't really have a 3-bet sizing available to him beyond.
He could maybe, but not with this hand. There's no real reason for that. He does appear to be just posturing. I don't see a world in which this ace-jack suited, given what we've seen of Kamosi, does anything but put the rest of the money in.
100,000.
Well, he comes with 1.6. The commitment is self-evident. And now let's see if Velt will request the rest pre-flop or just wait to C3.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Maybe he will wait to C3, and if an ace-king-queen board drops, then he can bail.
Especially because he has to anticipate honesty post-flop out of Kamoshi's kit.
Right, and he... Oh, is he putting the rest in? He's
yeah, he is.
Putting the rest in, okay.
4 bets, and Kamosi was always ready for it.
Yep.
He's a little bit concerned, but having 2 clean overs
I don't know. Good luck.
will leave him feeling better than he would have if it had been
Half a jack.
jacks plus.
Absolutely.
Or a dominant ace. We have our first all-in and call of the day.
Did I give you that to you?
Enrico Kamoshi's fate hanging in the balance in a 6 million chip pot. And the flop. King 5 deuce, no pair, but a couple of diamonds and plenty of hope with 2 to come. As you see Kamosi, a 10% favorite.
It's a pretty good start.
Now the turn, not nearly as good as he slips to 31% equity. Can he find the necessary ace, jack, or diamond? Only the deck knows. And the river is a 4. Urmo Velt claims the first pelt of this final table as Kamosi issues the GGs.
You know,
can I just walk out of here without the microphone in my face?
You know he's not loving it, but you're tasked nevertheless to get some parting words.
Yeah, and by the way, in terms of growth of the game, you know, just taking those few minutes to kind of help just build the broadcast, build the production value, treat things in the same way in which any other sport, if you're tempted to regard poker as such, would be broadcast, is always appreciated.
I certainly am, but I may be somewhat biased.
Yeah, some say game. I don't know if there has to be a delineating line, as the line of delineation here is quite clear. Velt Big blind Jack 6 trips against the Golinsky 7s here.
And Golinsky understandably just coming out with a bet straight away of 250 into the pot of 600.
This one was limped pre, so heavily under-repped are these 7s, but that's an irrelevant aspect. 250 into 600, Velt. Loving this spot. Such a dry board texture. What do you prefer here?
I typically like to call, keep my range a bit wide on these boards, and just kind of allow the action to develop, and then employ further aggression on later streets.
Marius agrees with that. A flat, now a king on the turn.
So naturally the king can connect with Velt. King high is certainly a plausible hand that he could be calling the flop with. Golinsky does decide to bet once again. He's betting a bit more than a third of the pot here. Clearly still value betting with his 7s. Any deuce will be hard pressed to fold in Velt's shoes. He could also have an ace. There are potential hands that could have turned a diamond flush draw. Given that dry nature of the flop texture, it's very easy for Velt to call with really any hand that has a backdoor flush draw. And as we see here, facing that small bet on the turn, he wants to put more money in straight away.
425,000 has become 1.5, Chewy.
Indeed it has. And Golinsky now has a tricky situation on his hands. These 7s once again fall squarely into that category of being a bluff catcher. Certainly we can't expect Velt to be raising any hand worse than 7s with the intention to get called. But on the strength of that pair, he does continue, and he only has 2 outs going to the river.
You know, I'm not so sure as we see a fairly dry 5 come off on the end here that Velt would be doing this with King X. And so if we can remove that from the range for Golinsky, the question becomes, do you or don't you have a jack? Perhaps some sort of semi-bluff with a straight and/or flush draw on that turn. And if you think that's what's afoot, this 5 of spades could leave you still quite curious with 2 7s, as into 4.1 million. Marius delivers 2.5.
Yeah, very well said. This is exceptionally likely to be a case where Velt's value holdings are exclusively a jack. And yeah, there are a myriad of hands he could be bluffing with. We don't know exactly what kind of strategy he would employ, as we see Golinsky looking somewhat pained here, understandably. Bluff catching in No Limit is one of the most challenging parts of the game. Obviously, bluffing a huge part of any poker game. And let's see if Golinsky can figure this out. A grimace, some glances around the room. He does flick the call in.
Yeah. You know, you understand the way in which the gears turn there. It's so tempting for Velt, even without a jack, to just rise up and attempt to apply some ICM pressure, utilize position, sort of a range that could include all sorts of hands as a check back in the big in a limp pot, blind versus blind. And Urmo surging.
Of both Elani and Hochheim, and he really would prefer to keep his distance. Speaking of Hochheim, here he is under the gun with ace-jack offsuit.
Sitting 5.6 million. He'll come with the standard open, and not standard is running into ace-king. Golinsky with medicine.
And this has to feel good after losing a few pots in a row. You saw he looked at his cards and kind of quickly moved his hands a bit, understandably making this 3-bet up to 1,050,000, and Elani with an ace-king of his own.
All of a sudden, the fuse is a bit lit here. But for Elani, I mean, we're not really in the business of ever flatting with ace-king, right?
No, certainly not out of position.
4.9.
He does just go for the committing raise.
Yeah, declaration of war. 4.9 million of his 7 deployed
How much
to the
is it?
battlefield. Hockheim, obviously
How much you have behind?
not interested any further in Ace Jack off.
Yeah, and this
Five right
is
here.
a funny situation for Golinsky. He has to
Another-
assume that Elani never has ace queen here, given kind of the speed and the size of this raise. He also probably never has pocket aces, though.
25 more.
I would imagine there'd be a more kind of cutesy raise,
please.
and he does just put it in.
I cover you. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Good luck.
All right, so
Yeah.
as to be expected, the
Don't need to
two
sit up
ace
for this.
kings,
Sit down, no problem.
Yeah, I thought you
the
had.
hands that are left
Oh,
standing.
we didn't jinx it.
I will win it.
That sounds like a jinx.
15 million chip pot, and obviously
I got it in bed, right? You got hearts and spades.
boys have to hold their breath a little bit
Yeah.
to ensure a bad beat isn't lurking. The ace of clubs for Elani, now free rolls.
Always. We always see these things, right?
Not like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I lose.
Turn is merciful, and they both end up with the nuts.
The same here.
You know, only one more day of play awaits them.
And how long that day of play will be could very well be dictated by this man, especially if the deck's going to pay him visits like this. 2 queens in the small.
Yes, indeed. And my goodness, Hockheim is probably going to lose at least some chips here with his ace.
Now remember, he snapped it off with queen 10 offsuit. And ace 4 is better kit than that, but I don't know what's going to be on his mind here. If
Yep.
he senses far and wide is going to be Andrian's approach to these small blind opens, you could feel very tempted to just snatch this 550 with an uneventful outcome. And yes, it is an all-in that was declared here. Of course, the snap now comes from Andrian, and Hockheim
Dame a 4.
just got caught with some poor timing.
Good luck.
Yeah, and I think it's a pretty reasonable play on his part.
Only to me, right?
It's so easy for Andrian to be applying maximum pressure here with all kinds of hands. Something we might wonder is how many of those hands that we would hope for him to be raising and folding with would shove, but nevertheless an ace, a lot of hand against the chip leader.
Well, it's not so much hand on this king 8 deuce board, where Andrian's queens are way, way out in front, and they stay there on this turn. The light flickering for Hockheim. Can he find a needle on the end? No.
Good game, sir.
Good game.
And instead of an injection of chips, it is an eviction of the German. GG's.
Doing what he can to get in a position to take it all down.
Ace Queen now for Marius Golinsky. A tickle north of the minimum, and pocket 7s for Urmo on the button.
Certainly going nowhere. And he does just decide to call. Oh my.
A flat, unexpectedly, perhaps, out of Velt, who has shown a propensity to pick on Golinsky a little bit and seek privacy, but it is Ron Elani who wakes up to 2 queens, and obviously 4 and change. We're going to want to get a lot of that out there.
Yeah, I think it might be time to just sail it in. And this is going to be a tough spot for Golinsky. I don't know if this ace-queen can really find a path to escape. Let's say Elani does shove. It's easy to imagine that hands like ace-jack suited, king-queen suited, maybe king-jack suited, ace-10 suited, all of these hands can exist in that range, of which Golinsky is doing fairly well against many of them, and then flipping against some of the weaker pairs. Of course, hands like queens and ace-king do always loom in these ranges where larger shoves are happening. Taking his time, being very deliberate. Perhaps considering his options between a smaller 3-bet.
Okay, so he does come with the non-all-in sizing here, Chewy, and I don't know about you, but as I soaked up the imagery alongside Golinsky and Velt, who are involved, it did feel much more cuspy than 2 queens.
Yeah. Yeah, he's done a nice job selling it. There was excessive deliberation, and I suppose this is the type of scenario. By the way, Andrian taking his time here with 8-3. Interesting.
Sure.
Perhaps just soaking it in, observing the situation. He didn't realize he had not folded his hand.
What the fuck?
So now back on
Maybe
Golinsky.
you thought it was like a big...
You know, on the one hand, Elani no longer has hands like king queen suited and ace jack suited, but he can also have weaker hands that are folding, and he does put it in,
You made it easy for me. It would have been tough.
much
tough if it
to
was-
Ron's delight.
So the ace
un
queen
po' addosso, pensavo che ci avessi chissà che. Good luck.
tempted into the 4-bet,
Sono abbastanza pari stack.
covering Elani, shedding the 2 sevens. Nice development, by the way, for Velt in terms of choosing to flat pre.
Yeah,
Getting out of there.
absolutely.
King 10 tray, and Elani must anxiously take the turn and the river. As the gut shot Broadway draw and the ace could present problems. You see Golinsky. He is the covering stack. He'd love to shower Ron here with a bad beat on the end, and instead the 8 of hearts.
I think he covers me.
He's just blindfold sinking every papa shot right now.
Oh, yeah. He's in the zone.
He's in the zone.
And,
He was heating up. He's now officially on fire.
oh, a little NBA Jam on your resume, perhaps? Oh,
My goodness.
Chewy, I
The
love
nostalgia
it.
is rich right now.
During COVID, I downloaded that bad boy and
Oh, that was
fired
smart.
it up, yeah. For Golinsky, ace-jack on the button. It would be smart not to get all your chips into the middle right now. Of course, one wouldn't blame him for doing so, given the VPIP. We presume the chip leader to be delivering to our doorstep right here with hands that don't do well against ace-jack. Unfortunately, ace-queen is not one of those hands.
Yeah, this is a cooler. We saw how many hands Andrian has played so far. For Golinsky to pick up a hand this strong with just 12 blinds and run into a better one, that is rather unlucky.
Well, let's see if Golinsky can enjoy another stay of execution. It was an ace-4, I believe, against king-6 last time, where he had to go all the way down to the river
È pericoloso, sì, sì.
to hit a 6-outer.
Quando metti
They're
la
both
sedia
on their
vicino,
feet.
come andar via, no?
And looking up at queen 9-7. Ace-jack has real issues on its hands.
Some backdoors looming, though.
Sudare, picca.
A sweat is
No,
possible.
il K, no, il K forse è troppo.
An 8, 10, king, or spade, or jack. Running jacks are also an option.
Vabbè, voglio proprio max sudata. Ten aspetta. We take that.
Look at Simone rooting for something sweaty and getting it.
Basta però.
He's a sick one, huh?
No, 2.
8 on the turn.
Golinsky flashing 10 fingers.
Calling for the 10, and instead he finds an inferior ace.
Great run, sir. Wow. He didn't give him back, Ali. 2 queens yet again.
Back to back.
Same suits, I think?
Don't adjust your screen. I didn't clock the suits, but I don't think he cares about all of that right now. More so, he just cares about how can I get the most out of Elani, who he has gotten the better of.
Yeah, and continuing to rise. Oh, my goodness.
El Clasico emerges here. Elani loves to see 850 in front of him. We're going to be going north.
Yeah.
3-bet inbound.
It's going to take a lot for all the money not to get in here. As we see a relatively quick 3-bet to 2.55 million.
Yes, we do. And of course, 2 queens loves this
How much
development.
you have total? Like,
And for Velt,
no?
does he want to just shove? Or is he going to make another smaller 4-bet, somewhat in line with what we saw with the limp raise earlier when he had ace-jack suited? These smaller click raises can be very effective if you think, for example, Elani is willing to 5-bet all in with a weak holding that he wouldn't be calling a shove with. It also opens up opportunities for bluffing in future situations. The wheels are turning.
I don't think that they're turning with regards to maybe different decisions other than 4-betting being taken into consideration, although this feels like we're trying to travel a path of 5-bet all-in induction from Elani more so than anything else.
Absolutely.
And as we can see, Elani does have a candidate on his hands.
And he does, of course, shove.
Yep, and when
and
the
a
snap
quick
call comes in, you know, best case scenario, it's another ace-king, I would imagine. Velt got exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, and just like this, Elani finds himself in a 24 million chip pot.
Good luck.
And if Velt is to win this, not only will he eliminate Elani and get heads up, but he'll take the chip lead.
Well, not lost on these boys is the equity of this exchange here. Just a little apartment, you heard them say. Your average, everyday poker hand, this is not. And a good board it isn't either. For the ace-king, 4-4 jack, queens, can taste it. 3-1 favorite with 2 to come. The turn is faded.
The queen no good for that Broadway gutty.
Yep. Only the ace or king will do it. 6 pure outs for Ron Elani to stick around. Can he find them? No.
Good one, man. Nice run.
And a very well fought battle by Mr. Elani. He has a lot to be proud of. And a big sigh of relief for Mr. Velt.
The deal is not allowed in...
Might stamina become an issue at some point? Neither of these guys have given us a glimpse of anything that would lead us to believe that mind or body are being pressed to their limits as it stands.
Yeah, I would guess not, particularly because they did just have a night's rest. We are some amount of hours into today's play, but they do seem relatively alert.
Urmo flopping an open ender here versus middle pair and that jack of diamonds.
And if Andrian... Okay, sorry, Velt has not checked yet.
Oh,
He does just bet right out here.
little protocol break.
Yeah.
600,000. Simone, happy to flat. Ace of hearts on the turn. And this is very much supposed to be more the buttons card than our own if we're Udamo.
That is true.
That said, sometimes we can leverage, strength falsely by barreling once more into that card.
Absolutely. And even so, that card may be better for the button.
3.5.
The general connected nature of this flop is
Oh, look
somewhat
at
nice for the
this.
big blind and a very big bet coming in.
3.5 into 2.4.
This is a
As-
nice play.
This has gone from a request to a demand.
And this is not easy for Andrian. We've seen this quite a few times so far, this we are bluff catching situation.
Listen, this man doesn't need things to be easy. He is
It's true.
ready to accept the difficult as he makes the call and doesn't really make a meal of doing so. 6 of diamonds on the river. Front door flush comes in. Top card on the flop pairs. And let's see if Velt has barrel number 3 available to him. What a blender he could potentially put Simone in, and he is going to jam.
Very interesting. And Andrian is very fortunate to have that jack of diamonds in hand.
Blocking the flushes.
Indeed. Of course, he does just have the 5 to go with the 6s on board. Velt's turn bet size does kind of indicate that it's not really a 6 anymore, in all likelihood. Andrian likely thinking through what are the kinds of hands my opponent could have if he is bluffing.
And time banks are going to get utilized here. Credit to him for unpacking this. What are the natural bluffs here? Exactly what we're seeing, 7x?
Yeah, I think a 7 or a 3 with a single diamond is pretty likely to be filling in that category of hand class.
Or perhaps a couple of hearts and a card such as that?
Potentially, but the hearts maybe not as desirable.
Just because you like to assign that to the opposition?
We would love that, yeah.
And we'd prefer to block the diamond flush, of course. As you
Indeed.
pointed out.
Yeah, I think this is a really nice play from Velt. It's, of course, risky, as all bluffs tend to be. But Andrian, we see sweating through this, glaring down at his opponent. Velt does look very calm.
I was hoping we would hold that shot a little bit further in the interest of maybe picking up on heart rate, any sort of neck pulse. Tough to make it out there.
Yeah, he looks unfazed entirely. It's interesting.
Consider the clicking call here. Apologies, Chewy, but this is for one's tournament life. This is
True.
potentially handing our opponent the bracelet with a pair of 5s.
It's very true. I was going to touch on how good of a job Andrian did before the break, releasing that King 7 in the face of a similar amount of aggression. And here we can see that his spidey sense is tingling. Looks like he does want to call.
Well, let's sit back and see what he comes with.
He's digging deep, Ali. His opponent really giving nothing away. Oh, he does make the call.
Good call.
Tremendous.
What a massive moment that was. A flick of a single chip, and all of a sudden, a power shift of sorts. What is it going to take?
Yeah.
How much more am I going to have to sit here and endure this?
Right. The sense that alligator blood sits across from you.
Yeah. Very much a reptilian sort of demonstration from Andrian thus far.
And this is a bit reptilian. Queen deuce suited dialing it up.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like Andrian has had this Jack 7 suited in a few pivotal 3-bet pots so far.
Yeah.
And it looks like one more is underway.
Has not performed particularly well. And Urmo sticking a forked tongue out there, wagging it around. Let's see what he can sniff out.
Ooh.
Jack 9 deuce, bottom pair versus top pair.
He does check it over. Wisely so. And Andrian checks it back, being very coy with his top pair.
8 now provides the bad side of a gutter to go with the best hand.
And the good side of it for the worst one. I think at this point, Andrian must be feeling very comfortable in going for value. If he puts a big bet out here, I don't think we're going to see Urmo going anywhere. Around half the pot. Or exactly half the pot.
Now, it isn't just the deuce, but also that queen that has Urmo deliberating. Remember, as played, this one was raise, 3-bet call.
All in.
Check and then check back.
Ali.
And Velt is going to go super hard here.
Oh, my.
A check jam.
Oh, yeah, I kind of like this play.
What a stone barbarian.
Yeah. He's looking to deny equity to flush draws, straight draws, and even target a hand like a 9. Well, unlucky for him, Andrian has such a strong hand in this top pair.
And you see Simone tilting his head here.
Yeah.
This is
He's even
so deeply unexpected.
Indeed. He's even pained with a hand this strong. I love this guy, Urmo. He's really getting after it, Ali. Wow, what a moment. I don't think this hand is going to fold, though. It's just too much hand, I think.
Is it?
I feel it is. Granted, this is a huge wager. It's just too easy to feel like your opponent can have some kind of draw. And he does make the call.
He finds the call. We're playing a 63 million chip pot, Chewy.
Wow.
Velt gave it all he had.
Kind of smirking as the cards are exposed. He's still 20% here.
Well, Simone didn't run from Vesuvius. As that eruptive check raise on the turn, he stood his ground.
Oh, chi ha chiamato due?
Will there be lava on the river? No! Jackson sevens.
How many to give you?
And oh my goodness! Velt
How many time?
has spun it down to just 14 milli
Wow.
with
Yeah.
far fewer blinds.
Totally agree. Oh, the 10's switching spots.
Okay. Deck playing fair.
And perhaps we are getting close to that moment I was mentioning where they both get dealt good hands. Okay, that's a pretty good hand. It might not be enough to put all the money in. Oh, but he is 3-betting Ali.
He's got problems.
And I think Andrian is going to dial this up once again
Fourth
in
floor?
some form or another. Whether it's a shove or a clicky type raise, more chips are going in. And there it is.
Oh, and this is on the clicky side of the spectrum.
And we
I believe we saw him induce a 5-bet jam earlier.
Yes.
I don't remember if it was heads up or not.
So he did it once with ace-8 when Velt shoved 8s. And then he also did it with kings when Velt folded what was a bluff with queen-8 offsuit. And this is very similar to when Velt himself made the 4-bet with king-3 and Andrian held ace-jack offsuit and just called, which of course we can see Urmo would be wise to do given the fact that he's up against 2 10s.
All in.
Oh, he's going to rip it. And of course, the snapper for Simone, and he's got this ace-10 in a bad way.
Yes, he does.
Well, he didn't find the call with the King 10, the first opportunity that was given to him. Here, it all enters the middle, pre-flop.
Wow. And this is the biggest pot we've played so far. 2/3 of the chips in the middle. I don't know what he's saying, but it probably translates to no ace.
Enrico Kamosi on the rail. He too was at this final table to start the day. Finished in 6th.
Odemo looks a bit stunned.
Rooting on Simone. The Italian flag. Waving. And the 10's holding on a 9-high board.
Some backdoor spades working, though.
Can Urmo break hearts? Chop available.
Yes. The chop could come in.
If we can find a snowman, the ace is a clean winner.
It's not winter
Anything
yet,
else, and it's Simone's day. The river, a king!
though. Wow. Congratulations, Mr. Andrian.
Urmo Velt gave it every ounce. Ultimately forced to accept second place. And a not at all shameful outcome of 854,000 euros. He can take pride in his performance, but the 1.3 million.
8-9 suitor, stuff like that.
Like some queens, kings.
What do you play like that? Yeah.
Queens I play, kings I mix like some.
And the bracelet
Anyway, GG. I was very low.
will go to Simone, who acknowledges that that was stiff competition that he had to navigate. A little post-mortem there on some spots. But how about it? 5 full days, 768 players, down to just 1.